How did a simple mistake end up destroying everything you built?
I never thought one mistake could rip apart everything I'd worked for. But it did. And the worst part? It wasn't even a big mistake at first. Just something small. Something I thought I could fix before anyone noticed. It started the night I forgot to lock the office safe. I'd stayed late again, finishing invoices and payroll. My company was my pride, my proof that I'd built something from nothing. My employees depended on me. My family depended on me. And yet, when I finally dragged myself home at midnight, I realized I'd left the damn safe wide open. Cash drawers and all. I told myself I'd go back in the morning. No harm done. But when I walked into the office at 7 a.m., the safe was empty. $27,000 gone. I froze. My hands trembled on the doorframe. The cameras! Thank God for the cameras! I rushed to check them, praying I'd see the thief's face and be able to hand it to the police, but the hard drive was missing, yanked right out of the wall. Someone knew. Someone who worked for me. That was the moment the paranoia began. I gathered everyone in the break room. My voice shook as I told them about the break-in, asked if anyone had seen anything strange. Blank stares, shaking heads. But I could feel it. Someone was lying. My company wasn't huge, 15 employees total. Like a family, I used to tell myself. But standing in front of them, sweat dripping down my back, I realized family doesn't steal from you. That night, my wife noticed I wasn't eating. "You'll figure it out," she said softly, reaching across the table for my hand. "You always do." But I didn't. The next week was hell. I couldn't pay vendors, couldn't cover payroll without dipping into savings. I told myself I'd reimburse it once the insurance cleared, but the insurance company stalled, asking for police reports, financial records, details I didn't want to provide. Because every time I picked up the phone to call the cops, one thought stopped me. What if it was someone close? What if calling them meant betraying someone I trusted? By Friday, I had no choice. I pulled $10,000 from our personal account to cover wages. My wife didn't even argue at first. But her silence at dinner grew heavier each night. And when she finally spoke, it cut sharper than any knife. "You're hiding something from me." I wanted to deny it, but the words stuck in my throat. So I just sat there, staring at the lasagna she'd cooked, steam rising between us like a barrier I couldn't cross. The silence stretched, and then she whispered, "Who was it?" Her eyes, she already knew, or thought she did. I told her the truth, that I didn't know, but she shook her head slowly as if I'd just confirmed her worst fear. That was the first crack. Small. Hairline. But once a crack starts, it spreads. The following Monday, a letter arrived. No return address, just my name scrawled on the envelope in thick black marker. Inside, a single sentence. "If you want the rest of your money, you'll do exactly what I say." My hands shook so hard, I almost dropped the paper. My chest pounded. Someone was playing a game with me, a game where the stakes weren't just money anymore. Because attached to the bottom of the letter was a photo, a picture of my son walking home from school. The crack widened into a fracture I couldn't control. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark living room, the letter clenched in my hands, staring at the photo of my son like it was a death threat, because that's what it was. He was smiling in the picture, his backpack slung over one shoulder, earphones in, completely unaware someone was following him. My blood ran cold every time I thought about it. When my wife came downstairs at 3 a.m. to find me still awake, she didn't ask. She just looked at me, her lips trembling like she already knew something terrible was coming. I shoved the photo into my pocket before she could see. I told myself I was protecting her. But deep down, I knew it was because I couldn't stand the look on her face if she realized how badly I'd failed. The following morning, another letter was taped to the front door. Same handwriting, same thick black marker. Meet me at the docks tonight at 9. Come alone, bring nothing, tell no one. I felt my throat close. The docks at night? Every instinct screamed trap. But then I looked again at the photo of my son. At 9 sharp, I pulled into the abandoned lot. The smell of salt and oil stung my nose, and the sound of water slapping against the pilings echoed in the dark. My heart was hammering so loud I was sure they could hear me coming. A figure stepped out from the shadows. A hood pulled low, hands in pockets. "You took long enough," the voice said, muffled but sharp. I swallowed hard. "What do you want?" The figure laughed, not the laugh of someone amused, but someone who enjoyed seeing me sweat.
"What I want," he said, stepping closer, "is obedience. You left that safe open. You made it easy. You owe me for not taking more. Now you'll pay me back the way I say." My fists clenched. Rage burned hot in my chest. "You put my son in this?" The figure tilted his head. "I put all of you in this because family makes you weak, and you're going to learn just how weak you are." He handed me a small brown envelope. "Inside, you'll find instructions. Follow them exactly, and you'll get your money back. Fail, and your boy won't come home from school one day." I wanted to grab him, tear off the hood, smash his face into the ground, but my son's smile flashed in my mind, and my hands went slack. By the time I opened the envelope, the man was gone. Just me, the waves, and the crushing weight of what I'd just stepped into. Inside was a phone. A cheap burner with a cracked screen. One message blinked. "Tomorrow, you'll fire someone. Pick the one who trusts you most." My stomach twisted. Fire someone? Just like that? But the words that followed made my blood freeze. If you don't, the next picture won't just be of him walking. I sat in my car for an hour staring at that screen, my reflection warped in the cracks. 15 employees. Most had been with me since the beginning, and he wanted me to betray one of them, someone who trusted me. When I finally dragged myself home, my wife was waiting. She didn't ask where I'd been. She didn't need to. The look on my face told her everything. But I couldn't tell her the truth. Not yet. Because if I did, I knew what would happen. She'd take our son and leave, and then I'd really be alone in this. The next morning at the office, I looked around the room at the people who'd built this company with me. They smiled when they saw me, waved, joked about Monday blues, and all I could think was, one of you is going to hate me by the end of today. I felt like I was signing someone's death sentence, even if it wasn't literal. By lunch, I still hadn't decided. The phone buzzed in my pocket, vibrating against my leg like a bomb about to go off. I pulled it out under the desk. A new message. "Clock's ticking. Do it by 3, or we'll choose for you." And then, attached, another photo. This time, it wasn't my son. It was my wife, shopping at the grocery store. The decision wasn't mine anymore. I stared at that photo of my wife until the edges blurred from my tears. She was standing in the cereal aisle, reaching for a box, completely unaware that someone was close enough to capture her on camera. Close enough to... My hands shook so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. Whoever this was, they weren't bluffing. They were watching us, circling like a vulture, waiting for me to slip. At 2:15, I called Evan into my office. Evan had been with me the longest, 7 years.
He'd been there when we were still working out of my garage, hauling equipment, doing double shifts when the money wasn't there to hire help. He'd believed in me when even I didn't. His wife had baked cookies for our first Christmas party back when there were only 5 of us. When he sat down across from me, his easy smile made my chest ache. "What's up, boss?" he said, leaning back like this was just another check-in. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. My throat was sandpaper. I saw flashes of the photo, the hooded figure at the docks, my son's carefree smile. I have to let you go," I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper. He blinked. He thought I was joking at first. Then his face changed. Slow confusion, then shock, then betrayal. "What? After everything? Why?" I couldn't answer. If I spoke, I'd break. "Tell me the reason," he pressed, his voice rising. "What did I do? You know I'd never—" I slammed a file shut to drown him out. "It's done, Evan. I'm sorry." His hands shook as he stood. His eyes searched my face, desperate for an explanation, something that would make this make sense, but I had nothing to give him. After all these years, his voice cracked. He looked at me one last time, hurt carved into his face, and then walked out. The silence that followed was unbearable. My chest caved in as though I'd just buried a friend. Not 10 minutes later, the burner buzzed again. One new message. "Good. You follow orders. This is just the beginning." I wanted to throw the phone into the wall, smash it into 100 pieces, but I couldn't, not with my family's faces burned into those photos. That night, my wife noticed my red eyes. "Did you fire someone?" she asked, her voice cautious, like she already knew. I nodded, staring at the floor. "Who?" "Evan." Her jaw tightened. "But he's family, almost. You always said—" I didn't have a choice. The words tumbled out sharper than I meant. Her eyes widened, and for a moment I thought she'd press. But she didn't. She just turned away, retreating upstairs without another word. The sound of her footsteps was worse than shouting. The next morning, another letter was taped to the front door. I ripped it open before anyone else could see. "Prove your loyalty again. Wire $50,000 to the account listed. 1 week. Or your family pays instead." $50,000. I didn't even have that much left. Not after the theft. Not after covering payroll. I felt the walls close in around me. My company, my marriage, my family's safety, all strangled in a noose someone else was tightening. At the office, whispers had started. People knew about Evan. They didn't know why, but suspicion lingered in every glance, every half-finished sentence when I walked by. By Wednesday, I was drowning in paperwork and panic. I tried the bank, begging for a loan. They refused without collateral. I tried my brother, but he laughed it off, said I must be exaggerating. That night, the phone buzzed again. A video this time. I opened it with trembling hands. It was my son, leaving school, just like before. But this time, the camera followed him all the way home, step by step, block by block, until he reached our front door. And then the voice, low and distorted, filled the audio. "You're running out of time." My legs gave out. I dropped the phone and fell to the floor, gasping like I couldn't breathe. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just blackmail. This wasn't about money. Whoever this was, they wanted to destroy me. I couldn't tell my wife. Not yet. Every time I looked at her, I saw the photo of her in that grocery store aisle. If she knew someone had been that close, if she knew they'd followed our son home, she'd break. And if she broke, I would too. So I carried it alone. The burner buzzed again the next morning. A new message. Your son has basketball practice today. Nice little gym. Lots of doors. Lots of shadows. Do not disappoint us. I slammed my fist into the steering wheel so hard it left a bruise across my knuckles. Rage burned through me, but underneath it was raw terror. They were everywhere. They knew our schedule. They knew everything. At the office, my employees barely spoke to me. The silence was heavier than words. Evan's empty desk was a ghost I couldn't stop seeing. Every time I passed it, I remembered his face, the betrayal in his eyes, and I hated myself all over again. By lunch, I locked myself in my office and pulled out the burner. "What do you want from me?" I typed, my thumbs shaking. "Just say it. Stop playing games." The reply came instantly. "We want everything. Start with your wife." My stomach turned. "No." I typed so fast the words blurred. The dots blinked. The reply, "She has everything to do with this. Confess to her. Tell her about the money. Tell her about Evan. Tell her about us. Record her reaction. Send it to this number. Midnight." I stared at the screen until the letters swum. This wasn't blackmail anymore. This was cruelty. They wanted me to unravel my life with my own hands. That night, I sat at the edge of our bed, the phone in my pocket, like a live grenade. My wife was brushing her hair, humming softly. She looked so normal, so safe, and I was about to destroy that. "I need to tell you something," I said finally, my voice shaking. She froze, brush halfway through her hair. The look in her eyes made my chest tighten. Fear, anticipation. I told her about the theft, about the letters, about Evan, about us. Every word tasted like poison leaving my mouth. By the time I finished, her face was pale, her hand covering her lips.
"You should have told me from the start," she whispered. "You should have gone to the police." "I couldn't," I said, my voice cracking. "They know everything. They're watching. If I make one wrong move..." Her eyes filled with tears. "And now they've dragged us into it. Our son, me. Do you even understand what you've done?" The phone in my pocket buzzed. I didn't need to look to know it was them, demanding the video. I pulled it out slowly, hit record, and aimed it toward her as she cried. "I'm sorry," I whispered. She stared at me, disbelief flooding her face. "You're recording this? For them?" I couldn't answer. I just lowered my eyes and let the shame swallow me. At midnight, I sent the video, my wife crying, her voice breaking, the exact thing they wanted. The reply came seconds later. "Good. Now we know where to start." And attached was another video. This one wasn't of my wife or my son. It was of Evan. He was sitting in his car, gripping the steering wheel, headlights off, eyes darting nervously around. The camera zoomed in close enough that I could see the sweat on his forehead. The voice on the video whispered, low and distorted, "He knows more than he should." I dropped the phone. My stomach lurched. They weren't just watching my family, they were watching him.
I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was being crushed under a cinder block. Evan, he had nothing to do with this anymore. He'd already lost his job because of me, and now they were circling him too. I picked up the phone, my thumb hovering over the screen, desperate to type something, anything. But before I could, another message came in. Meet him tomorrow, 5 p.m., at his house. Don't tell him why. Bring the phone. Leave with nothing. Leave with nothing. The words rattled in my head like broken glass. All night, I paced the living room while my wife slept upstairs. Every time I looked at the clock, the minutes blurred. I wanted to tell her. I wanted to run to the police, but every option led back to one truth. Whoever was behind this wasn't bluffing. They had eyes everywhere. The next day, I drove to Evan's house. His truck was in the driveway, rust eating at the wheel wells. I sat outside for 10 minutes, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my nails dug into my palms. Finally, I forced myself out and knocked on his door. He opened it cautiously, suspicion already written across his face. His wife peeked from behind him, her expression tight. "What do you want?" he asked flatly. I swallowed hard. I need to talk. He hesitated, then stepped aside. I walked in, my shoes heavy against the worn carpet. The air smelled like coffee and motor oil. We sat in his kitchen, silence stretching between us. I saw the anger in his eyes, but also something worse. Disappointment. "You ruined me," he said quietly, his jaw tight. "Do you even know what you did to my family, to my kids?" I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, the phone in my pocket buzzed. My stomach dropped. Slowly, I pulled it out. One new message. "Put it on the table. Turn on the camera. Walk away." I stared at the words, my skin crawling. "What is that?" Evan asked, his voice sharp. I couldn't lie. Not now. My hand shook as I set the phone on the table and tapped the screen. The camera lit up. Recording. He frowned. "Who is watching?" "I can't explain. I have to go."
By the time I reached my car, the phone buzzed again. I opened it with trembling fingers. The video feed showed Evan still sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the phone in confusion. Then the camera shifted. Someone else was in the room. A figure in a hood. Evan shot up, startled. "Who the hell are you?" The hooded figure didn't answer. The screen went black. I screamed in my car, slamming my fists against the steering wheel until my knuckles split. The world outside blurred through my tears. Another message appeared. "Good job. You've proven you'll sacrifice anyone. Now it's time for the real test." I didn't want to open the attachment. My body shook as I tapped it anyway. It was a live feed. My wife, standing in our driveway, groceries in her arms, completely unaware of the camera fixed on her. The voice came through the speaker, distorted and calm. "Choose, or we'll choose for you." And I knew then this wasn't about money. It wasn't even about destroying my business. This was about breaking me, piece by piece, until there was nothing left. I couldn't look away from the feed. My wife stood there in the driveway, keys dangling from her wrist, struggling with the grocery bags like it was any other normal day. The ordinariness of it cut deeper than any knife. I wanted to scream her name, to warn her. But the second I thought about it, the voice on the phone spoke again. "Don't. She won't hear you. But we will." I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The camera lingered on her face as she unlocked the door and disappeared inside. Then, the feed went black. Another message appeared. "You've lost trust at work. You've poisoned your marriage. Now it's time to prove where your loyalty really lies. Tomorrow,
Bring your son to the park at 4 p.m. alone. Do not tell her, do not ask why, or you lose him forever. I nearly dropped the phone. My son? No, that was the line. That was the one place I couldn't let them reach. All night I sat in his room while he slept, his chest rising and falling, his face peaceful. He had no idea the walls around him were crumbling. I brushed his hair back from his forehead, my hand trembling. When my wife woke up and found me there at 3 a.m., she didn't yell. She just stared at me, her face pale, her eyes hollow. "What are you doing?" "I'm protecting him." She didn't ask from what. Maybe she already knew. Maybe she was too scared to hear me say it out loud. The next day, I drove my son to the park. His basketball still rolling around in the back seat, his earbuds blasting music. He was laughing at something on his phone, completely unaware that every step of this day was being choreographed by someone else. We walked across the grass, the sun sharp against my skin. Parents were scattered on benches, kids shouting, dogs barking. It all looked so normal. But I felt the eyes, everywhere. The phone buzzed. I pulled it out. A new message. "Leave him by the fountain. Walk away. Don't look back." I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. My son tugged my sleeve. "Dad, you okay?" "Yeah, buddy, just work stuff." But my insides were tearing apart. How could I leave him? How could I take another step away? The phone buzzed again, more urgent. "Do it. Now." My son was already kneeling by the fountain, tossing coins, making wishes he'd never tell me about. His laughter rang out across the park, and for a second, I felt like the worst human alive just for breathing. I took one step back, then another.
My heart screamed at me to stop, but then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. A man in a hoodie, leaning against a tree, watching. My son, me, all of it. I knew if I didn't obey, they'd take him anyway, and I'd never see him again. So I walked. Every step away felt like knives slicing into my spine. My legs shook, my fists clenched until my nails cut into my palms. When I reached the edge of the park, the phone buzzed one more time. "Good. You're learning." Attached was a new photo. It was my son, still at the fountain, still smiling. But this time, standing just a few feet behind him, was Evan. I felt the world tilt sideways. Evan, it couldn't be. My mind rebelled against what I was seeing, but the photo burned into me like acid. He was there, behind my son, watching him. I staggered to a bench, nearly collapsing. My vision tunneled. Was this real, or another sick trick to twist me tighter around their fingers? The phone buzzed again. "You chose him once. You'll choose him again. Or your boy pays the price." My chest clenched so hard I thought I was having a heart attack. Chose him? What did that even mean? I typed back, my fingers trembling. "What do you want from me? What are you doing to him?" The reply came instantly. "You'll find out tonight. Midnight. Warehouse on Pierce Street. Come alone. Leave your phone at home. Bring only yourself. If you tell anyone, you'll watch it happen live." I drove home in a daze, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. My wife was waiting at the door, her arms crossed, suspicion etched deep in her face. "Where were you?" she demanded. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The truth felt impossible. The lies tasted rotten. So I just shook my head. "Work." Her eyes narrowed. "Work? Again?" "You're disappearing at odd hours, firing friends, acting like a stranger in your own house. Do you think I don't notice?" Her voice cracked on the last word, and it nearly destroyed me. I wanted to tell her everything. but the image of her in that grocery store photo came back, her life dangling like bait in someone else's hands. "I'll fix it," I said instead. It was all I could give her. At 11:30, I slipped out while she pretended to sleep. The streets were empty, the city hushed. By the time I reached Pierce Street, the warehouse loomed like a monster's rib cage against the sky. I stepped inside. The air was cold, metallic. My footsteps echoed. And then I heard it. A low groan. "Hello?" My voice cracked. A figure shifted in the shadows, hands bound, head slumped forward. Evan. I ran to him, my heart hammering. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut, blood crusted on his lip. "Oh my God, Evan!" I reached for the knots on his wrists, but a voice stopped me. "Don't." I spun around. The hooded figure stepped out from the darkness, the same presence from the docks, the same distorted voice. "Why?" I shouted, echoing. "Why him? Why me? What do you want?" The figure tilted their head, almost amused. "What I want," they said slowly, "is to watch you destroy yourself. And you're doing it beautifully." I felt my blood turn to ice. "You blame Evan, don't you? You wonder if he took the money, if he turned against you. That's what makes this fun, the seed of doubt. Plant it deep enough, and you'll never know who to trust again." Evan groaned, lifting his head weakly. I didn't." His voice was ragged, barely a whisper. I never."
The hooded figure chuckled. "Of course he didn't, but you believed he could. That's the point." I shook my head, rage and fear twisting inside me. If this isn't about money, then what the hell is it? The figure stepped closer, so close I could smell the faint trace of cologne under the grime. "This," they whispered, "watching a man with everything lose it piece by piece. Family, friends, company, trust, until there's nothing left but ashes." My fists clenched. "You won't get away with this." The figure laughed, sharp and cruel. "Oh, I already have." Then they tossed something at my feet, a small flash drive. "Everything you need to see is on there. The truth. But be careful." Their voice dropped lower. "The truth is what finally breaks you." And just like that, they melted back into the shadows, leaving me with Evan half-conscious in the chair and the weight of that tiny piece of plastic burning a hole in my hand. I didn't know what was worse anymore, the lies or the truth waiting to be uncovered. I carried Evan out of that warehouse like a dead weight, his breath ragged against my shoulder. He was half-conscious, whispering broken words I couldn't make sense of. Every step toward my car felt heavier, like chains dragging me down. By the time I got him into the passenger seat, sweat was pouring down my back. I drove aimlessly at first, unsure if taking him to a hospital would make things worse. Whoever they were, they'd see it. They'd know. Don't trust," Evan muttered, his head lolling to the side. I gripped the wheel tighter. "Don't trust who, Evan? Them? Tell me." But his eyes fluttered shut. I couldn't risk an ER, so I drove him to a cheap motel on the edge of town, paid cash for a room, and laid him out on the bed. He groaned, his face a mess of bruises, but he was alive. That was something. I sat at the small desk, the flash drive heavy in my palm. Every nerve screamed at me to plug it in, to finally see the truth. But another part of me, the part still clinging to the hope I could control this, hesitated. What if the truth wasn't about them? What if it was about me? I shoved it into the laptop anyway. The screen flickered. A folder popped up. Inside, dozens of video files, labeled with dates, some recent, some going back months. I clicked the earliest one. The footage was of my office, my desk, papers spread out, me sitting there, late at night, head in my hands. Then another angle. My wife, at home, cooking dinner. My son doing homework at the kitchen table. Another file, Evan laughing at a barbecue, flipping burgers while his kids ran circles around him. I clicked through faster and faster. More footage, different angles, different days. All of us. Always watched. And then the last video. My safe. The night of the theft. My stomach twisted as I watched myself on the screen, half asleep, stumbling downstairs in the dark. I was drunk. I'd forgotten about those nights, the stress pushing me into the bottle more often than I'd admit. And there it was, me, punching in the code, leaving the safe wide open. No one else, no intruder, no shadowy figure sneaking in. Just me. I felt the blood drain from my face. My throat closed. I couldn't breathe. The burner buzzed. Now you understand. A single mistake. That's all it took. And now look at you. You've ruined a friend, betrayed your wife, risked your son, all to cover up your own failure. Tears blurred the screen. My hands shook so violently I could barely hold the phone. Another message came. Tell them the truth, or we will. I looked over at Evan on the bed, unconscious but alive. His life torn apart because of me. I thought of my wife, her tears captured forever on that video I'd sent him, and my son, smiling at the fountain, unaware that his father was feeding him to the wolves.
I slammed the laptop shut. Rage boiled in my veins, but beneath it was something worse, the crushing weight of guilt. I had destroyed everything. And now the only question left was, how much more would they make me lose before they were done? I don't remember falling asleep in that motel chair, but when I woke, the room was dim, the curtains leaking a pale line of daylight. Evan was still breathing, shallow but steady. For one brief, fragile second, I almost convinced myself it was a nightmare, that the messages, the videos, the hooded figure, none of it was real. Then the phone buzzed. The sound snapped me back like a whip. I picked it up with trembling hands. She's already asking questions. How much longer before she learns the truth from us? My stomach twisted. They meant my wife. I drove home on autopilot, my eyes raw from exhaustion. When I opened the door, she was sitting at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. "We need to talk," she said softly, too softly. I sat across from her, my body aching. She slid her phone across the table. A video was open on the screen. My heart stopped. It was me, the motel, carrying Evan's limp body into the room. "Who filmed this?" she whispered. Her voice trembled, but her eyes burned with anger. "Why are you hiding him? What the hell is going on?" I couldn't answer. My throat closed. She slammed her hands on the table. "You owe me the truth, damn it. Our son's life, my life, whatever this is, you dragged us into it. Tell me." Tears blurred my vision. "I made a mistake," I whispered. Her silence cut deeper than any scream. She leaned back, shaking her head slowly. "A mistake? That's all you can say?" Before I could explain, the phone buzzed again. Another video. This one of her, my wife, sitting exactly where she was now, at the kitchen table, except in the video, the camera was closer. Too close. She gasped when she saw it, her hand flying to her mouth. "They're here," she whispered. My blood turned to ice.
I ran to the windows, yanked open the curtains. Nothing but the street. Quiet and empty, but the weight of their eyes pressed down on me all the same. The phone buzzed again. "You failed the test. Now you'll watch what happens when we take control." The video changed. My son, at school, laughing with his friends, completely unaware. The camera lingered too long, too close. I dropped the phone, my knees giving out. My wife was screaming now, panic rising in her throat. "We're going to the police." "No," I shouted, my voice cracking. "If we do, they'll—" The phone buzzed one last time. "You still don't understand. This isn't about what we'll do. It's about what you'll do when you have no one to trust." And attached was a new image, a knife pressed against Evan's throat. I couldn't breathe. The image burned into me, the blade pressed against Evan's skin, the faint smear of blood where it had already nicked him. My wife clutched my arm, shaking me. "Who are these people? Why are they doing this?" I stared at her, my lips trembling. "Because of me." She froze. The words hung in the air like a confession carved into stone. "What do you mean, because of you?" Her voice cracked, like she already knew but wanted to hear me say it. My throat felt raw, but the truth ripped out of me. The money, the theft, it wasn't stolen. It was me. I left the safe open. I was drunk. I ruined everything. And instead of telling anyone, I lied. I blamed Evan. I fired him. I couldn't go on. The shame was suffocating. Her face twisted between horror and disbelief. "You destroyed him. You destroyed us." The phone buzzed again before I could speak. Tick-tock. Save him or lose him. Location attached. I opened the message. A map. An address on the outskirts of town, near the old rail yard. My wife's eyes widened. "You can't go." "I don't have a choice." "You'll walk into a trap." I grabbed my coat, my hands shaking. "They already have him. If I don't go, he's dead. And if he dies, that's on me too." Her voice rose to a scream. "And what about us? What about your son? Do you even see what you've done?" Her words sliced deeper than any knife, but I couldn't stop. I stormed out, slamming the door behind me. The drive to the rail yard was a blur of headlights and pounding blood in my ears. When I pulled up, the place was silent. Empty, but for the rusted skeletons of trains long abandoned. The phone buzzed. Inside. I walked through the yard, the crunch of gravel under my boots deafening. Every shadow looked alive, my breath clouded in the cold air. Then, I heard it, a muffled cry. I ran toward the sound, my heart slamming against my ribs. In the dim light of a broken lamppost, I saw him, Evan. Tied to a chair again, the knife pressed harder against his throat this time. His eyes were wild, pleading. The hooded figures stood behind him, calm, patient, waiting. "You came," the voice said, low and distorted. "Let him go," I shouted, my voice breaking. "This is between you and me. Leave him out of it." The figure chuckled softly. "But don't you see? He is you. He's your guilt made flesh, your cowardice, your betrayal. You wanted to bury him, so we did it for you." I shook my head violently. "You're insane." The figure stepped closer, the knife glinting in their hand. "Maybe. But the real question is, are you willing to finish what you started?" My blood froze. "What are you talking about?" They dropped something at my feet. A gun. Cold. Heavy. Loaded. Kill him, the voice whispered. Prove your loyalty, or we take your son instead. Evan's eyes widened. He shook his head desperately, muffled words spilling through the gag. Tears streaked down his face. My hand hovered over the gun, shaking so violently I thought I'd drop it. The choice burned into me like fire. Save my son, or kill my friend. The figure's voice cut through the silence, sharper than the knife itself. Decide. Now. The gun felt like it weighed 100 pounds in my hand. Cold metal. Heavy. Wrong. My fingers twitched against the trigger guard as if some invisible force wanted me to pull it. Evan thrashed in the chair, muffled shouts spilling through the gag. His eyes locked on mine, pleading, desperate, accusing. Do it, the hooded figure whispered, pressing the knife harder to his throat. A thin line of blood trickled down his neck. My heart pounded so hard I thought my chest would split open. Every nerve screamed against the impossible choice. My son's face flashed in my mind, smiling, alive, still safe. I lifted the gun. My arm shook, violently. Please, Evan gasped through the gag as the figure yanked it down just enough for him to speak. Don't let them win. The words hit me like a hammer. I turned the gun toward the figure. My finger squeezed. The shot cracked through the rail yard, echoing off steel and silence. The figure staggered back, dropping the knife, clutching their shoulder. The hood slipped, and my world split open.
It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't some faceless tormentor. It was my brother. My knees buckled. No, this can't. He smiled through the blood, a twisted grin that made my stomach churn. Took you long enough. Evan's head snapped toward me, his voice raw. Your brother? I dropped the gun, stumbling backward, bile rising in my throat. Why? Why would you do this to me? He laughed, clutching his wound like it was nothing. Because you always had everything. The company, the family, the respect. And me? Nothing. Just scraps. Do you know what that feels like? To live in your shadow every single day? My voice cracked. So you destroyed me? I didn't have to. You destroyed yourself. I just gave you the stage. Evan struggled against the ropes, shouting, Untie me! He's lost it! He'll kill us both! But my brother didn't move to finish him. He didn't even flinch at the blood soaking his shirt. He just stared at me, eyes alight with something darker than hate. You made one mistake, and I turned it into the avalanche that buried you. Because I wanted you to know everything you built was fragile, and I could take it with one hand tied behind my back. The sound of sirens cut through the night, faint but growing louder. My wife. She must have called them. My brother's grin widened. Looks like curtain call. He melted back into the shadows, limping but steady, before I could move. By the time I stumbled forward, he was gone. The sirens wailed closer, red and blue lights flashed across the rusted trains. Officers poured into the yard, guns drawn, shouts filling the night. And there I was, kneeling on the gravel, blood on my hands, Evan half dead in a chair, the gun at my feet. The truth was out. But not all of it. Because my brother was still out there, watching, waiting. And I knew he wasn't finished with me yet. The floodlights blinded me as the cops closed in. Hands shoved me to the ground, gravel cutting into my cheek. The cold bite of steel snapped around my wrists. Gun on the ground,
Suspect detained. Their voices blurred. I tried to scream, to tell them it wasn't me, that my brother had set it all in motion. But when I looked up, all they saw was a man with blood on his hands and a weapon at his feet. Evan shouted hoarsely, "It's not him. He saved me. It was someone else." But his words dissolved in the chaos. They loaded me into a back of a squad car, the bars of the cage closing around me. My wife arrived seconds later, her face pale under the flashing lights. She grabbed an officer's arm, yelling, demanding answers. Our son clung to her side, terrified, his wide eyes locked on me as they shoved me into the car. That look, that one look, it carved into me deeper than anything else. At the station, they pushed me into a sterile room, the kind with no corners, just shadows in the walls. A detective in a wrinkled suit dropped into the chair across from me. He slid a folder across the table. Security footage, safe theft, money missing, and now this. He tapped a photo, me at the rail yard, gun in hand, Evan tied up. "You want to tell me why everything points to you?" I buried my face in my hands. Because it was meant to. Because he wanted it this way. The detective leaned back. He? My brother. My voice cracked. He's the one doing this. He set me up. He filmed everything. The detective cut me off, his voice sharp. "Your brother's been dead 3 years." The air drained from my lungs. I stared at him, shaking my head violently. No, I saw him. I shot him. He was there. I swear it." The detective's eyes softened, just a flicker. Pity. Grief can make us see things. But facts don't lie. And the facts say you destroyed your own life. He stood, leaving me in silence.
Hours bled together. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the cracks in the table. When they finally let me out on Dale, my wife wouldn't meet my eyes. She just walked past me, our son in her arms, like I was a ghost. Back at the house, I collapsed in the living room. My hands shook as I reached for my phone. One new message from an unknown number. Dead? No. Ghosts don't die. They linger. They wait. And they never stop watching. Attached was a photo. Me, sitting right there on the floor, phone in hand, eyes wide with horror. Taken seconds ago. I dropped the phone, my breath coming in short, ragged bursts. My brother wasn't gone. Whether dead or alive, he was still here, still pulling the strings. And I knew, with sick certainty, that the real destruction hadn't even started yet. I didn't sleep for days after that photo. Every creak of the house felt like him. Every flicker of light was a reminder that he was still watching. My wife moved into the guest room. She said it was for space, but I knew better. She looked at me like I was dangerous, like I was already half a monster. My son avoided me completely, his little footsteps skittering away whenever I entered the room. I was losing them inch by inch. The cops never found him. No fingerprints, no trace. They ruled the warehouse incident as a drunken breakdown, a business rivalry gone wrong, a man unraveling under the weight of his own lies. Evan tried to defend me, but his voice didn't carry far enough. Not against the evidence my brother had so carefully planted. One evening, I went back to the warehouse, alone. The chair was gone. The blood washed away. Only the shadows remained. I stood there for hours, waiting, hoping he'd show himself again.
And then I heard it. That laugh. Low, cold, familiar. I spun around, but the place was empty. Just the echo of his voice, bouncing off the rusted steel. You finally see it now, don't you? His voice slithered through the dark. Everything you built was fragile, and you were the one who cracked the foundation. Why me? I screamed into the emptiness. Why not just take what you wanted and leave me alone? Silence. Then a whisper. So close, I could almost feel his breath on my ear. Because destroying you was what I wanted. The sound faded. The air went still. I sank to my knees, broken, hollow. Since that night, I haven't seen him. Not clearly, but the signs never stop. A shadow moving just out of view. A photo left in my mailbox. Me, asleep in my own bed. A whisper on the wind that sounds like his voice. The truth is, whether he's alive or just some ghost I conjured in my guilt, it doesn't matter anymore. He won. My wife left. She took our son. I don't blame her. Who could love a man who can't even trust the walls around him? Evan, he survived, but he won't return my calls, and I don't expect him to. The company? Gone. My reputation, my friends, my family, all burned to ash because of one mistake. One night I left the safe open. One choice to lie instead of confess. That was enough to unravel everything. Now, I live alone. Curtains always drawn, locks checked 3, 4, 5 times before bed, and still, I hear him. Sometimes I think he's standing in the corner, smiling that twisted smile, waiting for the moment I break completely. Maybe that's what he wanted all along. Not my death, my destruction. And he succeeded. That was the day I stopped recognizing who I was.